Hey sightseers, Sightseeing Sally here. What do you know about Cedar City, Utah? Not much, did you say? Well, I've spent the last few days checking out this unique mountain town located in southern Utah. And as an outsider, I have to say, there's some really cool, interesting sights to see, including ones that are free here in Utah's Festival City, USA. To kick things off, we're going to start over by the old Union Pacific Railroad train depot. It is here that you'll now find the Mandarin, where you can get authentic traditional Chinese cuisine, and the Cedar Depot Mercantile, where you'll find antiques, collectibles, and crafts. Built in 1923, this Cedar City Railroad Depot is now on the National Register of Historic Places due to being the only building still standing in Cedar City that documents the influence that tourism and the railroad had on the development of Cedar City. According to the placard that's sitting outside the depot, pretty handy spot for it, the arrival of the train greatly contributed to the tourism industry, not only because it brought tourists to the area, but the Union Pacific Railroad also bought hotels, buses, and built lodges. And in a just short 10 years, this increased tourist traffic to Zion National Park from a measly 3,692 visitors in 1920 to 55,297 tourists in 1930. Amazing, huh? Of course, with the advent of the automobile, that impact that train travel had on tourism here wouldn't last, as the depot was shut down in 1959. Nowadays, however, visitors to Cedar City can come out and see inside the old train depot by shopping within the doors of the Cedar Depot Antiques and Craft Mall, or by grabbing a bite to eat at the Mandarin. Since it is a little bit early for me to have lunch, I'm gonna pass on the Chinese, but I thought it'd be cool to go on inside the old Cedar Depot Mercantile, which was established back in 1993, just to take a quick look-see at all the things that they offer inside here. Well, that was cool. Why don't we move on down into the historic district of Cedar City and check out some of the other sites. You can see we're entering into Cedar City's historic district. Check out this really cool old light that's still on the side of this building. It must have once been home to some attorneys, because it says the Park Firm, established 1968, and you can see their law offices, and it's the Park Firm lawyers. Now this historic building's home to several different businesses, including the Indigo Medicine Luxury Medical Spa, Vittles Cafe, and some sort of fitness center. Up ahead, you can see that this cross street, this one-way street that cuts through here, is known as Hoover Avenue. And coincidentally, the building that's on the corner is home to Jensen's Vacuum and Sewing Shop. And in the front window, they have these old, historic looking vacuum cleaners on display. Look at those old Hoovers. Wow, this Daisy Sweep number 2 is from the 1890s. Can you imagine vacuuming with something like that? moving along. In this building over here, we have what is known as pie crumbs. Did somebody say pie? According to their sign, they're open, which means only one thing, and that is, it's time for pie. I think we should go on inside here and check out what they have to offer. I figured the best way to show off pie crumbs is to get myself a personal pie or two. I may share with Marty. It'll actually be a surprise for him. He hasn't been feeling the greatest, so he's hanging back, kind of just acting as security today. I got you something. If you stop by my Instagram or Facebook, you can find out how we enjoyed those pies. One thing you'll notice as you walk about the historic downtown of Cedar City is that at various points they have statues placed commemorating important people in the town's history. This particular statue is of pioneer stockman Francis Webster. A leader in the sheep industry, Francis Webster, born in England, arrived here in Utah in the 1850s. One of Cedar City's early merchants, he opened a small store. Later, he went on to become an active member of the city council and eventually became mayor before becoming elected to the lower house of Utah's territorial legislature. According to the sign that's next to the statue, he really led an interesting life. He traveled to Australia and twice to the gold fields of California. By age 25, he arrived back in England with $1,200. I'm sure if we dug into Francis Webster's life, we'd find more interesting tidbits. However, I think it's time I show you Bullocks drugstore. This historic building houses not only some really cool boutiques, but also a soda fountain ice cream shop and an old-fashioned candy counter. I've seen several people come outside with these fabulously looking ice cream cones. Too bad I'm having to watch my waistline. Otherwise, sightseers, you know I'd be all over that. Moving on. We can see next door to Bullocks is Clark and Lynford Jewelers, where you find trophies, plaques, engraving, and of course, jewelry. Which, gentlemen, if you're looking for that perfect gift for that special someone in your life, you now know where to shop. To round out this block of eclectic shops and stores, you have what is known as the Hunter Cohen Mountain West Computer Store. Established in 1931, they have everything from automotive paint to home decor to clothing. You can even find yourself a pet companion, should you so choose. One thing that's nice about the historic downtown of Cedar City is that they have this nice handy map available for you to check out various points of interest throughout the town. Right here is where we are currently. We had started up over here and showed you the historic train depot, and we've made our way down. And we're going to just continue on and probably take a little left over here. We're now at the corner of Harding Avenue and Main Street. Here you'll find a historic bank building, the Bank of Southern Utah. And interestingly enough, this bank in Utah was the only bank to close and then reopen during the Great Depression. As the story goes, On Christmas Eve of 1931, the bank's board of directors realized that the bank would no longer be able to meet its state-mandated reserves. The state's bank commissioner favored liquidation, but the community, led by the Chamber of Commerce, disagreed. They wanted to keep the bank open. According to this, the commissioner conceded to allow the bank to reopen if the community raised $100,000 for the reserve. Believe it or not, the people of Cedar City rose to the challenge, held fundraising efforts, and raised $90,000. Some mortgaged their homes, others borrowed from insurance policies, and teachers even donated their pay. Even though they were short the $10,000, the bank commissioner agreed to reopen the bank, but warned the citizens of Cedar City that if they weren't careful, there could be a run on the bank and a loss of all that money. On May 4th, 1932, in anticipation of the doors reopening, a long line formed outside the bank. At the appointed hour, the bank opened, and the crowd rushed in to put a run on the bank, but not in the form of withdrawals. It was in the form of deposits. That's right, sightseers. On that day, the good citizens of Cedar City deposited an additional $26,000, thus allowing their bank to remain open. You see, outside the bank building, they have another statue. This one is commemorating Richard Harrison, who was the ironworks superintendent. According to this, Richard Harrison was also from England, and when he arrived here in Cedar City, he helped organize the Iron Mission and was involved in the establishing of a company for the making of iron. Later in life, he went over to Old Irontown, aka Iron City, where he served as a superintendent there for many years. Coincidentally, last week I released a video walking through the ruins of Old Irontown, Iron City. If you haven't seen that yet, you'll definitely want to head over there next and check it out. Now, who remembers this company? If I had to guess, that would mean at some point this building here held the Woolworths. There's me trying to avoid getting ran down by the guy on the scooter. But as I was saying, based on these two grates here, there's one there and then the one I showed you over there, I'm thinking this was a Woolworths.
As far as I remember, I believe Woolworths went out in the mid-90s. I know they're around in the beginning of the 90s, but I think they were gone by the mid-90s.
My own personal memories of Woolworths are rather fuzzy just because of how young I was the last time I was actually in a Woolworths. But what about you, Marty? What do you remember about Woolworths?
Last time I was in a Woolworths, this is no lie, they had a lunch counter in it. It was in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It was probably 93, 94, and we were eating in the diner, and there was a gap between the table and the wall, and there was bugs running between that gap because the food would fall in between there, and you couldn't clear it out because the table was bolted to the wall.
So your last memories of Woolworths included food and bugs.
Yep.
One thing I want to mention before we head into our next stop is that no matter where you look in the historic downtown district of Cedar City, you're gonna find some amazing mountain views along with some charming old buildings. And look at that, we've arrived at our next stop, Cedar City's old theater, now home to Ganache gourmet brownies. Oh my, and we got some brownies to try. Like, who can resist brownies, right? They also have ice cream here, and everything looks fabulous. Definitely worth a stop. Just to point out real quick, here in the entryway, in the old movie poster section, they have their menu of brownies and ice cream. Looks like they have caramel apples here too. And of course, a little bit about Ganache. And then over here, you can look out through what was once the old ticket booth. Well, moving on. As much as I enjoy sweets as the next person, I think I'm about ready for something different. Something a little more culturally driven. Who's with me? We can do books, or... Well, since we're here, and I love a good bargain, I'm just gonna peek inside real quick. Oh, I love it. They've got the bookstore connected to the coffee shop, and then they've got this little boutique over here. Oh, so fabulous. I wish I could stay here all day, but I know how much you guys want to go see the museum, so... Before we head over to the museum, I wanted to point out a few things. First, you can see the trees are just blossoming. It's springtime here in Cedar City, and it's the perfect time to be out exploring. Ah, if only there was smell-o-vision and I could share the wonderful scents from the beautiful flowers around me. Unfortunately, they haven't invented anything like that. You'll just have to take my word for it. In front of me, you can see the historic stone church of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. According to its cornerstone, it was established in 1931. And then if you continue on back towards Main Street, you'll find this talking about Cedar City's tabernacle, which is not talking about this church, but rather a church that once stood here on the corner where the old post office building sits today. And if you're wondering what that tabernacle looked like, well, you're in luck, because here on this placard, they have a picture of it. Next up is the Frontier Homestead State Park. Before we go in, I wanted to point out a few things that are staged here. Out in front, you can see that they've got this old Southern Pacific rail car. You are allowed to walk up inside it. Whew. Oh, cool. You've got the privy right there. Of course, you can't access that now because you probably have somebody try to use it. A chair. And then this would have been an old water cooler. Hey, they've got a desk here. And apparently this train was transporting some sort of explosives, because they have this Bureau of Explosives binder located in desk drawer. Not anymore. Here's another interesting sign. It says, operating employees are prohibited under all conditions from occupying the roof of this caboose. Well, how do you like that? Does that mean I can't climb up on the top of the caboose myself? Anyways, I'll just point out over here they have the switches. I'm assuming these were some sort of breakers that got pushed on and off. And then in here was this cubby space that may have held some batteries. Does that say radio? Yep. So this is where the radio, some of the electronics, important stuff was held. And then you've got more seating up over here, and your wood stove or wood burner. and a bed even. I have to say that these seats here are a heck of a lot more comfortable than the ones provided in the caboose I rode down in Nevada, Boulder City, Nevada. If I'm not mistaken, over here, this is part of the braking system. This is some sort of pressure gauge that shows the amount of probably air pressure within the air brakes. And this here probably allowed you to manipulate that air system, perhaps throwing the brake itself. But I don't really know that much about trains, and well, Marty, as I said earlier, hasn't been feeling the greatest, and so he's not hanging out here. The other really cool thing that they have staged outside the museum is this old electric shovel. Nowhere near as large as Big Brutus, that electric shovel we went and saw in Kansas. This electric shovel is a baby in comparison. As you can see, I'm standing here and I'm taller than the track, whereas with Big Brutus, the track was actually taller than me. I can barely even touch the top of the track on this crawler, and I'm 5'6". Regardless, this machine is still a sight to see, with the Bucyrus Erie 120B shovel being able to handle 6 tons of dirt and rock with its scoop. Something I just learned is that these electric shovels back in the 1930s, when they were being used to mine the iron ore, is that the hourly wage for a shovel operator was 48 cents per hour. Crazy, huh? We're walking in here. I thought I'd give you a quick look-see since we're here. You can see there is a big wheel with some old cable on it. I imagine that is what was used to move the bucket around, although I don't have Marty up here to confirm that. And then you've got the spot where the operator sat and the controllers for moving that huge bucket. Really not that much different than Big Brutus was, other than the fact that it was on a smaller scale.
By the way, I put together a bonus video featuring several of the museum's spectacular displays, not shown here. The catch? You need to be a patron or a Sightseeing Sidekick to access it.
You remember the game, the Oregon Trail? We make decisions traveling across the United States?
I sure do. In fact, I played it on a computer at school in 6th grade, but I happen to also know that somebody has the game at home.
This is similar to it. It's asking you questions like, do you bring winter clothing or not? Let's say you don't. These are the consequences. You failed to load winter clothing, now everybody in your family's freezes and your youngest falls ill. How about whiskey?
What about whiskey?
Let's say, no, you don't bring whiskey. Let's see what happens. Your child gets bit by a snake. You have nothing to cleanse the wound. The child loses their leg. Well, let's see what it says under yes. Your child gets the same thing. So there is a right answer. There's no 2 right answers.
That's funny, because I would have thought that if you would have brought whiskey, then a band of thieves would have came along and stolen it.
I would have brought the whiskey just to deal with the kids.
Well, anyways, their consequences are examples of what could happen out on the trails when you were traveling way back in the day. A couple more things I'll point out in here, and then we're going to move on. You can see they've got all these pictures here from town, from Cedar City, of different places around town. And Carnegie made it over here at some point, or at least his money did.
Apparently they get snow here once in a while.
That kind of reminds me of what winter looks like over in Wisconsin. And speaking of winters in Wisconsin, they have here at this display talking about the Eliason snowmobile. If you didn't know, the first snowmobile, or motor toboggan as it was called, was actually invented by a gentleman out of Saynor,
Wisconsin.
Carl Eliason was his name, and there was such a demand for it that he eventually partnered with another company out of Clintonville and developed.
Interestingly enough, this particular unit was once used by the Idaho Power and Light Company to patrol the power lines during winter.
So how do you like that, sightseers? We came all the way from Wisconsin to Utah just to discover one of the first snowmobiles designed out of Wisconsin.
It's a motor toboggan.
Well, they also put in quotes, snowmobile right there. So I guess that means we're both right?
I'm always right.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff out here, Marty.
Yep.
On this end, they have staged various pieces of farm equipment, and then over here, you've got a number of different wagons, all in varying conditions. There's a jail cell right here, and then we have a couple of cabins or various buildings. Let's go find out what those are about. According to this placard, this building here, this log cabin, is the oldest log cabin still standing in southern Utah. It was built in 1851 by George Wood, one of the founders of Iron County. He originally had it built in Parowan and then later moved it to the old fort in Cedar City, and then it was moved to his lot on North Main Street.
And as you can see, they have it staged to reflect what it may have looked like back in the day.
In addition to the oldest log cabin in southern Utah, they also have this building here, which is a line shack, one of only two built by the Utah Parks Company.
It was used as shelter by those maintaining the Cedar Mountain telephone line.
Oh, look at this. They have chickens here on site. According to this is the Happy Hen Homestead with Amelia Eggheart, Edith, and Pearl occupying its premises.
Well, hello there. Did you guys lay some eggs today?
One of the best features about this museum is that visitors are encouraged to explore history through a variety of hands-on and interpretive displays, like what you see Marty doing here, panning for gold.
Some stuff in the bottom.
In addition to panning for gold, you can also try your hand at doing laundry the old-fashioned way, where you get to use the power of the sun and wind to dry.
What a fun and cool way to spend the day, taking your family out, checking out how life was like back in the day. And even if you don't have kids, it's still a great place to come and explore Utah's early history.
Well, as much as I'd like to dive into more of the sites here, I think it's time we move on. Speaking of museums, if you head over to the visitor center, inside you'll find another museum known as the Daughters of Utah Pioneers Museum. It's a free little museum where inside you'll find artifacts and information about Cedar City.
Unfortunately, I didn't make it here in time to go check it out. But if you ever head to Cedar City, you'll definitely want to make a stop to check it out. In addition, of course, you'll get a lot of information about things to do in the area. Well, sightseers, I know I didn't cover everything that you can possibly see or do here in Cedar City. There just wasn't enough time to get to it all today. That just means next time we're in the area, we'll have to step out and I'll have to take you around to the other sites. Until next time,